Funding for this program was provided by Pensacola Bay Area Impact 100 and produced in cooperation with Gulf Coast Kids House and the Monique Burr Foundation for Children. The MBF 5 safety rules and the MBF Safety Squad used with permission by the Monique Burr Foundation for Children. Hi guys, I'm Sierra, and this is No Unsafe. So there's this thing that happens to our brains as we grow and change from a kid brain to an adult brain. During that transition, we feel unreasonably invincible, like bad stuff won't happen to us. To other people, yeah, but us? Come on. So we cut a few corners, bend a few rules, drive too fast, leap before we look, talk without thinking. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Well, a lot, actually. Our choices have consequences. Maybe not immediately, but eventually, somewhere down the line. Do you remember this blurb about consequences? Hey, can we run the clip?
Consequences.
Yeah, you see, when we do something, and because of what we did, something else happens. That something else is a consequence of the something that we did.
Even if we never intended or had any idea that this would happen, still the consequence is a result of our action. However, with a little life experience, and by taking the time to think about what we're doing and why we're doing it, we can usually make a pretty good guess at what the consequence will be to our action. Usually when someone says consequences...
Consequences.
Yeah, like that. It sounds like a bad thing, but actually consequences come in two flavors. You have your good or positive consequences, things we want to have happen, and then you have your less desirable, bad or negative consequences, things nobody wants to have happen. Yeah, and as we get older, as we get new freedoms to go and do more of what we want, we're gonna come across new people in unfamiliar situations, and not all of them are gonna be safe or healthy. And those bad or negative consequences typically come from getting involved with unsafe people and unsafe situations. So let's talk about how to keep safe and healthy even when what's around us is unsafe. Do you remember learning the 5 safety rules when you were younger? The 5 dancing balls, each color was a different rule. Safety rule number 1 was...
Know what's up.
So like, would you know your parents', guardians, or other safe adults' phone numbers if your phone died or got lost or fell into a jar of water for some reason?
Why?
That's something you need to know. Also, you need to be aware of where you are and who's around you, both in real life and online. Apps, websites, chats, and make sure that those conversations are safe and appropriate. And of course, never, ever share information with anybody you don't know and trust. And no, knowing someone online isn't really knowing them. That doesn't count. We'll talk about more things to know what's up later on. Next is safety rule number 2.
Spot red flag.
There are people, places, and situations that are like, whoa, that is a red flag. Bullying, cyberbullying, verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse, trying to shame someone, those are all red flags. Sharing explicit or embarrassing pictures of people they obviously wouldn't want shared, that's a red flag. Someone trying to trick, manipulate, force you into a bad situation, or even a situation where you don't really know what's going on, that's a red flag too. And if someone wants you to keep secrets about unsafe or dangerous people or situations, that is a huge red flag. And when you spot a red flag, you gotta safety rule number 3. Get away and stay away from unsafe people, situations, websites, apps, even online chats. And if you find yourself in unsafe in-person situations, you could try faking a call from a parent, saying you're sick and need to leave, or maybe just being honest and say, sorry guys, this is messed up, I'm out of here. If you know certain people or situations are usually unsafe, just get away and try and avoid them altogether. And once you've made a move, it's time to safety rule number 4. Basically, use your voice to keep yourself and others safe. And there are 3 ways to do that. First, tell unsafe people, nope, not happening. You don't have to yell or be angry, just be firm. People need to know that when you say no, it's because the answer is no. And it's okay to say no to anyone, even adults. If you're in an uncomfortable situation or you're just unsure about what's going on here, you may even want to think about ways to say no. Plan ahead for how to get out of these situations before they happen. Like, I have a friend who phones her mom or dad and asks, "Did anyone let the cat out?" They don't have a cat. That was their private family phrase, and it told her parents that she was in an unsafe situation with unsafe people. But she couldn't ask for help out loud because they were listening, and she needed help now. Second, talk it up also means telling your safe friends and adults about what happened. If you've been in an unsafe or dangerous situation or have been hurt by unsafe people, it's okay to get support from your safe friends, but it's really important that you always tell your safe adults what happened too. You may even want to have a safe friend with you when you go to tell your safe adult. A third way to talk it up is by starting a club at your school, talking about anti-bullying, healthy relationship boundaries, consent, or digital dangers. Helping kids use their voices to create a culture of safety. There's power in numbers. And the more people that speak out against an unsafe person or situation, the more effective that message will be. It might be hard to talk about these things, especially if you were once part of the unsafe situation, maybe part of the bullying crowd. But that's where safety rule number 5 comes in.
No blame, no shame.
As you grow and get more freedoms, you're still learning how to make your own way in the world. And you're gonna make mistakes, lots of them. But there is no shame in that. The important thing is that you help the safe adults in your life keep you safe and healthy by telling them what's going on in your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Your safe adults can talk with you about the choices you've made or the choices you're thinking of making, and they can help you sort through any confusing or conflicted feelings. Also, it's important to remember that you are not to blame if someone is bullying or abusing you. It's not your fault. Especially if they're an adult, because adults are supposed to be safe. And if you're trying to keep what's happened to you or is still happening to you a secret, afraid to tell anybody, that's shame. And hiding in shame is unsafe too, because it leaves you isolated and alone in your pain. Talk about what's happening, bring it into the open, into the light, and help the adults in your life help get you back on the path to a safe and healthy life. Whatever's going on, I guarantee you are not the first or only person to go through it. So talk it up with your safe friends, but most importantly, your safe adults, because you are not to blame and there is no need to feel shame. So, know what's up, spot red flags, make a move, talk it up, and no blame, no shame. Just 5 safety rules to help you avoid the negative consequences of getting all tangled up with unsafe people and unsafe situations. So, how does this work in real life? Well, we interviewed some teens and 20s about red flag situations they were in and how the 5 safety rules helped to get them out. Now, to protect their identities, we've changed their names and turned them into cartoons in a segment I'm calling Cartoon People Tell Real Life Stories.
Cartoon people tell real life stories.
Yeah, that. And we've divided up these stories into 5 topics. Number 1. Is it gossip or cyberbullying or worse? How not to build a digital reputation. Number 2, online, friend or predator. Number 3, is that sexual abuse? Number 4, selfies and sextortion. And number 5, relationships, healthy and unhealthy. And we'll talk about how to spot and avoid being trafficked. In the US, trafficking is a $32 billion business that traps hundreds of thousands of children and teens into sexual exploitation. So, yeah, consequences you want to avoid, right? We spend a lot of our life just talking, mostly with people we know, families, teachers, coaches, kids at school. Some are friends, others maybe not so much. But they're all people that we've actually met. And even with family and friends, feelings get hurt because stuff got said and maybe we were gossiping. But hopefully we're able to work past it, learn a valuable lesson about not gossiping, and everything is forgiven and forgotten. Unless you did it all digital, through chat or an online game where everything that's said, along with who said what, is permanent and public. And because online gives us a certain anonymity, meaning you can hide your true identity, we somehow feel free to say things that we would never say face to face. Disagreements with random strangers escalate into full-blown cyberbullying like that. This is Coop. He was a newbie on a multiplayer game, and while he was learning the game, he was also learning about cyberbullying the hard way.
Since I was new, I started dying, in the game. And this guy started saying, get good or you're trash. And then he started getting a little bit worse. Just stop playing games or just quit life. I was at an age where I didn't really know if that was what I was supposed to do or ignore it. I thought about suicide. It might have been a joke to him, but I knew a person that was actually a good friend of mine. Got cyberbullied and shot himself, and I was devastated.
Cyberbullying. It can have serious consequences. Cyberbullies get expelled from schools, fired from jobs, and face fines or jail time or both. Everything you post, every image you share, images that maybe you don't want reshared, all that stuff gets stored permanently, and you have no control if or when it gets made public for everyone to see. So keep your digital reputation clean. Don't get sucked into the drama of cyberbullying anyone, even if you're defending a friend from some other cyberbully. Just don't. Because colleges and employers will check your digital reputation, and all they'll see is what you posted, not why you posted it. Okay? All right, well, this is Jeremy. His friend was cyberbullied in an online game too, by a guy who was a grown-up. Jeremy noticed red flags in how his friend was acting, so he helped him make a move and talk it up.
The guy, he kept saying mean stuff about my friends, family and stuff, saying they should die or something like that. And he kept crying. He felt like the man was actually watching him. In school, his grades and his test scores went down. He didn't really pay attention in class because at night he'll be crying, so he didn't get enough sleep. After he talked to me about it, I told him to tell his mom and dad of what's going on and what's happening. They text the man to stop messing with their son and stuff. After that, the guy, he waited about 2 weeks. Then he kept cyberbullying my friend, just kept bullying him and bullying him. My friend left off the internet. After he did that, he felt a lot more better. At first, my friend thought that he was to blame for it, but I told him he wasn't. He's just a man just trying to bully other people online.
So he talked it up with his parents, made a move to quit that game completely, and like Jeremy said, there's no blame, so there's no shame. Another feature of online anonymity, being able to hide our identity, is that it lets predators pose as just another kid wanting to be friends while they fish for victims. Can anybody say to catch a predator? This is Maddie. And she's had to spot way too many digital danger red flags.
Well, if you're going online, you shouldn't share personal information because anybody can hack into your stuff. I see the red flags. They're like, oh, you're so beautiful. When can I get out and meet you? What state do you live in? What's your city? It was all the red flags right there that she was texting. I'm like, you have a good day, ma'am. I just block the person and I'll just delete the app, period. And I will tell my mom about it or a parent or guardian, hey, so they would be aware of it, what was going on. I understand that us as teenagers, we don't want to tell our parents a lot of stuff, but at the same time, we still need to because we're their kids and they want to protect us.
It's important to tell your safe adults about any unsafe people or situations with strangers, whether online or in real life. But statistically speaking, most of the unsafe people in our lives are going to be people we already know. It might be a cousin or someone we thought was a friend or someone you kind of have a crush on, and it might start out as a game or a joke or flirting or sending pictures back and forth. And then they ask for, or maybe send, an inappropriate picture of themselves, or maybe someone else with their clothes off. So, sexual abuse. There are 4 types of abuse: neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and this one, sexual abuse. When it happens, especially if it's someone in the family, it's the kind of stuff we really just don't want to have to talk to mom and dad about. I mean, right? You might try and convince yourself, like, really? Did they really just cross that line? Well, whether online or in real life, anybody who touches, looks at, talks about, takes pictures of, shares pictures of, asks to see your, or tries to show off their private body parts with someone underage and without consent, that's sexual abuse, and it's a crime. This is Alice, and her abuser was someone in her own home.
My mom had a boyfriend, and he was about 30. He would check me out of school and take me home, and he would make me watch stuff, and he would make me do things that were uncomfortable. Then he took videos and pictures. He told me that I can't tell my mom that he was doing this stuff to me. I was scared.
Abusers will try to scare and shame you into keeping the abuse a secret. But you're not to blame. They are. So you don't need to feel any shame. And yeah, it can be hard to talk about sexual abuse because, it's sex. But it's not sex. It's abuse, it's hurtful, and it's harmful. So always talk it up with your safe adult so they can help keep you safe. Like Lexi, who eventually told her mom about her controlling and abusive boyfriend.
I was 15 years old, and there were multiple occasions where I was threatened into having intercourse with him. One night, super late at night, I told my mom everything, that he would threaten me with the pictures I sent him if I didn't give him what he wanted. He would raise his hand and curl it into a fist and make me flinch and make me come under him just so he could get what he wanted, and I lived this for a year. My mom was obviously really upset I had waited so long to tell her, but she understood why, because she had been in a similar situation as me around my age. So my mom helped me pick out another school, get all my classes transferred as quietly as we could. But once he caught wind that I was leaving that I hadn't told him, he began to show up at my house. That is when me and my mom really began to fear for my safety. We got the proper authorities involved. We put a restraining order out. I did not ask him to do this type of thing. I simply wanted him to love me and to be loved.
Lexi's boyfriend used the selfies she'd sent him to extort sex from her. Sexual extortion. Sextortion. I'm sure the relationship seemed great in the beginning, and she probably thought, everybody shares these, what's the harm? But Lexi was only 15, underage, a minor, and having or sharing inappropriate or explicit pictures of the private body parts of minors and children is a felony. And even if you're not underage, posting sexual content may seem harmless and fun, exciting, a rush, but you can't control where that content goes, or when, or for how long. And you may come to regret that content being permanently out there, getting shared and passed around, always on the first page of your digital reputation. Sextortion isn't just a relationship hazard. Sometimes a friend, or maybe an acquaintance of a friend, is really a very dangerous predator, a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm talking sex traffickers. I mentioned before that trafficking makes tens of billions of dollars, enslaving thousands upon thousands of teens into sexual exploitation in the US. Worldwide, it's hundreds of billions of dollars and millions of kids. Let me introduce you to someone. This is Marcy Landreth. She's a mental health therapist who runs Set Free Refuge, where she works with teens escaping sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking definitely is a huge issue throughout the U.S. In the state of Florida, we are number 3 for trafficking. You'll see that you can hit I-10 all the way to California and go all the way to South Florida. So really, it's the ability for these traffickers to move people as quickly as possible, and we are directly on that line. That's why it's so important that we know what the red flags of trafficking are, because so many trafficking victims don't realize that they have been trafficked.
So what is human trafficking?
Kind of the definition of sex trafficking and trafficking in general is the person wouldn't choose to do sex acts on their own, someone else is making them. And kind of in the definition, anyone under the age of 18 isn't considered able to be selling themselves for sex. Someone else is being involved in that kind of a transaction. The 3 major components when you think of trafficking as a whole, you're gonna look at force, fraud, and coercion. For example, with like sextortion, unfortunately, some kids have complete relationships with people that they actually have not seen, and they may decide to send pictures that are provocative, and then the next thing you know, they're using those pictures against you and then make you do some form of sex act to get you kind of like brought into like being sexually exploited. Know who you are talking to. If you've never seen that person, like eye to eye, or, oh yeah, that's my friend John, then you probably don't need to be friends with them on Snapchat. Fraud is you're told one thing and something else kind of comes out of that. I tell you to come over to my house to clean my house, but you know, you're being made to do a sex act. Traffickers are going to pose as safe adults at first, but then there's this bait and switch. They will turn into unsafe adults. That's what traffickers do. They're in the business of getting you caught up into this world so that you can't say no and you can't get out. One of the major things that traffickers look for is that vulnerability. They're looking for that kid that doesn't feel loved in their home and doesn't feel supported. There comes an individual, a trafficker, that says, look, I'll give you a phone, I'll give you a purse, I'll give you love and attention. I have the spare bedroom you can stay in. And what they're really creating, and this is more of a therapy term, it's called trauma bonding. And if you want to stay for a few more nights, I really need you to do this for us, right? And so that's that coercion. And if you know, you're living with a trafficker and you have a bedroom and you have some things and a little bit of stability in your mind, what else would you do? You would do whatever that person needed you to do because they gave you a sense of identity. And when you're a runaway, there's nothing. Like you're completely and totally by yourself. And a trafficker will see that and he will meet those needs for you.
We've talked a lot about very unhealthy and non-consensual relationships. Bullies, online predators, sexual abusers, traffickers, and sexploitive ex-boyfriends. So how about we end on a positive, more hopeful note with a segment I'm calling Top 5 Signs You Might Be in a Healthy Relationship. Whether it's friends or something more, these are the flags you want to be seeing. Number 5, you respect each other's boundaries. If you're dating and someone says no, you respect that. You don't keep pushing at their boundaries trying to get a, okay, fine, yeah, whatever.
He's very careful to make sure that I actually was ready for our first kiss.
Our first kiss, though, is very awkward because I'm a 6'4". She's 5'2".
You always know where you stand with them and that it's a safe space.
You know, you always kind of want to have a barometer of how the other person is doing. And so, you know, you just kind of ask, how do you feel about this? Is this okay?
I would say when I was young, I really struggled with boundaries. I grew up in a culture that's very touchy-feely. And in some ways, I think for Jake, it was, oh my goodness, she is kind of going past my boundaries.
We were not touchy-feely family. Like, you shook your dad's hand, you didn't give him a hug.
And so Jake always was kind of that, like, okay, let's maybe not do that, Marcy.
Like, I do feel like I can fully trust him and know, even if I'm asleep or incoherent for some reason, I know that I can trust him.
If they don't want to do something, I'm like, well, okay. I'm not going to push that. I don't want to push anything on anyone because I know what it feels like on the other side. And I didn't like it being done to me, and I don't want to do it to anyone else.
I do think knowing that he always respects my boundaries and has never crossed any of those boundaries, it definitely allows us to be closer as a couple.
Number 4. You share goals and share a life, but you also support each other, having individual interests, pursuits, and friendships.
We like to be together a lot, but it's really necessary that we have our own friend groups, that we have our own things to do. George has always been super supportive of me doing my own thing.
It's something that I've had to grow into, because I think at one point in my life I thought that as a couple we have to do everything together, go everywhere together, and like have the same interests. That's an area where he's kind of helped me grow, where it's like there's a beauty in us having our own different interests, but still coming together on the things that we actually do have in common.
That silo or that kind of doing your own thing really kind of helps you build up, and when you're able to give to your partner, I think.
It can be sticky, that you're going to go someplace and you're going to go without me, and why?
The bottom line is trust, and you have to develop a trust that, and some of it is like allowing people to do something is how you develop that trust. You're never going to be able to say you can't go hang out with your friends, and trying to do that is really damaging to a relationship.
Number 3. If there's a conflict, you both try to work it out without trying to hurt or accuse each other.
It's easy to feel like, at least for me, at one point it was like, are you the enemy and we have to fight and someone has to win? But we don't necessarily have to win. I want us both to be on the same page and for us to move forward together.
I really had to learn that relationships were not about fighting, it was about loving each other through George, and that was a different perspective than what I had grown up with.
You have to bump up against each other. It's conflict that helped me realize that I didn't want to be with somebody that was boring, and I didn't want to be with somebody that always agreed with me or had great ideas with me or loved everything I did and followed me like a puppy. It wasn't fun. So conflict can happen and be really valuable for the relationship.
We're always trying to improve and be better.
For each other.
For each other, absolutely.
Yeah. Even in those uncomfortable times and situations, you have to remind yourself that kind of yucky, icky conversation is built to strengthen your relationship.
The biggest thing I've learned in life is you can't take back the words you say. When I am really upset, it's better just wait and calm down before we have those conversations.
Number 2. You can talk honestly and be your authentic selves, even during disagreements, without the fear of being judged or punished.
One of the things that made the relationship work from the outset was I didn't feel like I had to be on or performing or wearing that mask. I could just be the nerdy, weird, awkward, sometimes, messed up kid that I was.
We're able to have conversations and I can bring up to you thoughts I have that I probably would never share with anyone else because I would be afraid of someone judging me or thinking the worst about me. And I feel like this is a safe space, and that's so important for me in our marriage.
He saw me. He cared about me, he respected me. I could tell that I was a priority for him, and I had not ever really been treated like a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want her to be phony, believe me, and I know phony, but she's never really was. She's always just a giggling little green-eyed girl.
When you're given the opportunity to be your authentic self, you become the best version of yourself.
It gives you the power to be who you want to be. I think one of the top things that make a relationship work is just saying, you know what, you're you, and you're gonna do weird stuff that doesn't make sense to me, and that's all right.
And the number 1 sign you might be in a healthy relationship, you both feel heard, seen, valued, and respected by the other.
I grew up in a situation where I wasn't heard. Okay, it was very kind of quiet. Not too many conversations were had, and that's just the environment that I grew up in. And so because of that, I was reluctant to speak. But when I met, Pello, and I realized I had a voice. And that's just a very beautiful thing. When you realize that you can be heard, you want to speak, you want to share, you want to conversate. And so she has truly given that to me by listening to me.
To me, it's the little things. It's him making my cup of coffee in the morning. If I have a big decision or a bad day at work, he's the first person that I want to hash it out with.
Because I've had the support that Marcy has been there, I feel like I can be who I am and not have that judgment or that game that has to be played.
He pays such close attention to the things I do, the things I say. It means a lot to me, and it helps me to slow down in life. So I feel very much seen and heard in our relationship, and that means the world to me.
Let's end it with that. Heard, seen, valued, and respected. That is a good life. And that's our time. So go on out there, be good to people, and make good choices. See ya.
Know what's up. Know what's up. Spot red flag.